In today's video, we're back with Alejandro, who's going to tell us about this company called ROST. And I know a little bit about them, but I'm going to let Alejandro share his investing insights with our audience today. So thank you for doing this presentation, Alejandro. I know the YouTube audience has appreciated learning from you before, so please feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everybody. It's been a long time, but very excited to be here back. And today I'm going to talk about ROST, which is a place I like to shop. So it's pretty cool to talk about companies where you are a fan, I guess, and a customer. So it makes it easier. And obviously, we always, as investors, we go to some place and we think how they make money, so you get a lot of insights by shopping there and getting to know the people that work there, because one thing is what you read, another thing is what you do in the business. But at the same time, obviously, it's retail, so it's a business that Mr. Buffett is very cautious with. So let's get started a little. So what they do, they are an off-price business model, selling branded products, home products, ladies products, men accessories. So very interesting about this is that you can obviously get products here, clothes, things for your house, that you can get also at department stores. But the beautiful thing here is that you pay 20 to 70% less. Obviously, everything has its advantages and its disadvantages. The advantages, you pay less. So if you're a value-oriented person, I guess most of us investors, this is what we're looking for in anything we do. So I feel it's a brand that is connected to the people that are looking for value, because you do find the value. And the other correlation is that you have to really look into it, because not everything that is there you're going to like. So it's like a treasure hunt. It makes you look, and not every day you're going to get something that you value at a discount. I mean, obviously you're always going to have discounts, but not every day you find something. So as a customer, I like this place, but it's not as predictable as like going to a department store. So basically, if you need some blue pants, your size for a party tomorrow, I mean, this is not a place to go, definitely. They've been in business more than 40 years, and with ROST, but they also have the other brand, which is called Didi stores. The big difference is like Didi is for maybe lower income people a little bit. I mean, ROST is more lower middle class. Didi's is more in places where it's lower income, but I mean, obviously they are similar. As I said before, their products are between 20 and 70% lower than the department store, which, I mean, 70% is a pretty big margin. And especially, I mean, in branded products. I mean, I know this brand since I was like 10, which is pretty interesting because I live here for a year, and yeah, with my dad, we found this brand. Are you a customer at ROST, Michelle?
Well, actually, I wish I could be. They're not really close to where I live, so I've heard great things, and people really love shopping there, including my aunt. Like when she goes to Florida, she loves to shop there. So I think it's popular in many places.
Yeah, absolutely. And per what you say, yeah, I mean, they're really trying to develop and get like really well known in the places where they are present. So, and especially because the scale that they manage is very important. I mean, so basically, if they build a distribution center, I mean, they want to like explode it to the maximum. A little in the number of stores, they have like 22,100, 80%, around 80%, so like 1,700 are ROST, 20% are Didis. As I said, I mean, they do have 20 years in difference. They opened ROST in around 1982, I believe, and Didis, it was like on 2004. One key element, as I said before, to achieve the prices that they take advantages on the imbalances between demand from department stores and supply of the goods. This is called opportunistic purchase, which is something super interesting because it's like, let's say the exporting goods orders, I don't know, 100 shirts from Nike. And for some reason, the supplier decides to produce 200. So if Dix don't buy them, here's where Ross comes and they get probably half price of what Dix pays. So, and this is translated to the customer. So it's a pretty interesting model. I mean, there is a lot of these models, and one that is similar. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not in exactly the same. It's a competitor or anything, but it's not doing very well. Which, if I can find a hypothesis to invest in, is Big Lots. I mean, their stock is so low, but I mean, they don't really sell that much clothes, or I mean, it's different, but which means is, I mean, not every one of these models is working, but Ross been working and they've been growing like crazy since the 2000, which is important to mention because 2000 is when Amazon like start growing, and a lot of retailers just been like closing stores while Amazon has been growing. So Ross is, I'm not saying it's not affected, but it's one of the ones who has been able to survive, and I believe if they already survived, they're gonna keep surviving. And as we always say, that doesn't mean it's a great investment or anything. It just means the business model works, and it's a pretty interesting place to look at. A little of how their sales are divided. So home is the most important, but not very far. Ladies, men's is 15%. So as we can see, it's very diversified, which is super interesting, especially because, as we're going to see in the next slide, they have maintained this like through the years. So as you see, like it's 26% in 2021 and it's still 26% in 2023. If you see many companies, they start going some way. Like for example, I think Apple has been growing a lot in services, but in hardware they're like little stock, I guess. But I mean, who knows with this new AI thing that's been happening. But I mean, Ross is very interesting how steady they are in the different segments. So the competitors always, I mean, always that you see a company, you definitely need to see who are the biggest competitors, and I would say the biggest competitor is TJMaxx, which is actually bigger than them, but they do have different brands. Burlington is but they're like same prices, same area. Also like Burlington, Macy's, Dealers and Kohl's are, I mean, obviously department store is a little pricier and they sell way much more expensive. I'm sorry, but I mean, as we said, if you wanna some type of product for certain size, I mean, those are the places to go. And online stores, obviously, I mean, they keep I mean, these new online stores, they bite the sales of Ross and Walmart and Costco, and I want to expand a little later on that, but right now I'm gonna go to the next slide. Again, here's a little the growth stores. As we can see, they grown at around 100 a year, a little less, a little more, which is about 5%, which I mean, again, they have zero delivery to the houses. So basically, they are growing in the era of Amazon, which is absolutely impressive, obviously, because many other competitors cannot tell this story. When you listen to a conference calls, they always talk about the opportunity that they have from those closing shops. So a lot of, I don't know, let's say Big Lots go out of business. I mean, there's going to have a big retail space that they can take advantage. Obviously, being a trustworthy customer as a real estate player, I mean, they're going to get great prices, and they are an anchor to shopping. So I mean, a lot of people like to to come to Ross, and for when you own a retail shop, you want to have them as your tenant, obviously. Here's a little of the capex, which I wanted to talk about. As we said, the part of new stores for me is super important because it's what it costs to open a new store, and basically they open around, as we saw in the last picture, last slide, it was like 94. So basically, we could say that to open a new store in 2022 is $2 million, and their sales total about 20 billion, and they have a total of 2,000 stores. So basically, they sell about $10 million per store, which is very, very impressive for a store that costs only two million to open. I mean, obviously, what's important is what's the net profit, which is about 10% of what they sell. So that is about $1 million. I'm sorry, $1 million per store. That's the net profit of the store. So basically, the return on invested capital, which obviously we always talk about this, how important it is about 50%. Another thing I love and think a lot about them is that they are never, it's very hard to disappoint a customer when you go to Ross, because you as a customer are not expecting like they have anything. And obviously to train the employees is not as hard either, because it's just basically make sure that the store looks okay. Since, I mean, you don't have to have 20 pants of certain size, 20 shirts of certain size. You just put whatever you get at a good price and it's there. So the service and the training, I think, is way more simpler than a lot of the businesses that we talk about. So that's one of the things I really like. And obviously they have built a great relationship with the suppliers. And so basically you as a supplier, as I put the example before, like let's say you supply to Dix, and Dix is not going to buy all the shirts for Nike. So Ross is top of mind to reach out and offer the prices because of their scale. As I said before, TJMaxx is bigger, so those are the top two players. But I think Ross is cheaper, so I guess that's the little difference between TJMaxx and Ross. I mean, TJMaxx is a whole other chapter. Is deep, but I mean, definitely when you think Ross, and as an investor, you gotta think TJMaxx.
Yeah, and I think, doesn't TJMaxx own Marshalls?
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they own Marshall, TJMaxx. If I'm not mistaken, they own Marshalls and Home Goods. So I feel Marshall is a little more like more expensive than Ross, but I mean, obviously I will say that they have better brands most of the days. But as we say, I mean, it's a treasure hunt. So if you look good, you're gonna find good things. I mean, I do find great things at Ross when I go. So a little of the income statement. As we see, their interest is negative, which means they're making money on their cash, I mean, they probably have treasuries. So it's pretty cool. I mean, they do have a loan of like $2 billion, but also they have cash that is invested in treasuries. So at this moment, they're making money on interest. So as we can tell, I mean, it's a very, very well managed from a cash perspective company. As we see in the bottom, they've been buying shares. Obviously, one of the things we love as value as Buffett fans, company that invest in what they know how to do. But I got to look a little deeper into this. But I think they destined certain, like let's say $2 billion to rebuys during a year, which obviously the best thing to do is, I mean, destin certain percentage, but as Mr. Buffett always says, I mean, at a good price. I mean, you cannot just destin, I don't know, 2 billion. And for example, I checked the stock before, and I think it's close to record high. So I mean, I think it's not a good point to be buying, but again, I'm not the CEO, so she decides what to do. The balance sheet, as I always like to see, accounts payable against inventory, especially for retailers. What tells us is basically that they don't have to have working capital invested into the business, because basically everything is being, like, if you do accounts payable minus inventory is basically nil, which means they don't really have that much working capital. I mean, the products and things that they have is basically financed free by their suppliers, which, I mean, obviously we love to see that they do have good cash, as we said, and part of that is invested in treasury, I guess. I couldn't find it in the annual report, so not 100% sure. But I mean, I don't I don't think they're investing in other stocks or anything. I think they're just getting that nice 5%, and that's where they getting the positive interest, and they are not losing money in interest. And right here, the depreciation, the additions to property, plant, and equipment, as we always see. I mean, if a good way to see if they are keep growing the business. I mean, we have talked about this, but is that addition to property, plant, and equipment is bigger than depreciation, which means they are investing in new stores and getting new things. And below we can see they have spent a good bit in repurchase of shares, as we talked before. I mean, a billion is pretty big, because their net income, for example, for last year was 2 billion. So I mean, they are investing pretty big in this and becoming owners of their own shop, which again I think is great. The debt, always like to see the debt, because I repeat myself, but I tend to hear people always talk about how it's not. I don't like to get into companies with debt, and I think one of your big idols, Phil Town, talks about this. But again, as I think I said in a previous video, I sort of disagree in the way that I think that the right word is, like, be careful with that, but look at when are the payments due, look at return on capital, look at how it's distributed, because a lot of times that if you have a pretty stable return on capital and a pretty predictable return on capital, I think that is great. Not having that is just like, if you're paying 5% and your return on capital, for example, as we talked before, is almost 50% for ROST. I mean, you are making 45% with float, basically. So but again, I mean, obviously it's pretty easy to say it. It's harder to bring it into reality. But I do not like a little that their debt is not that well divided. They just basically have to pay their debt in the next 6-7 years. For example, I remember Home Depot, I mean, they have their debt divided in the next 30 years. This one I think is a little too tight, but I guess their business is pretty solid. So I mean, they be okay. What will Buffett like and not like? I think he will not like that he's a retailer. In retail, you have to be smart and stay smart. You remember how he always says this?
Yeah, and I know he's had a few situations where when he went into the department store business, it didn't always work out.
Yeah, I always have that in my mind because I do like, I don't know, it's exciting to me to look into retailers. I think it's a thing, just because you get, I don't know, you get a touch with it. But again, you have to be smart and stay smart, and it's a very savvy phrase. But Mr. Buffett, he would not like how competitive it is, as we talked before. I mean, every front is getting competition. He will probably have very present his, as you just said, his experience with a department store he bought many years ago, I think in the 60s or something, with Charlie, and he always talks about this and how they have all these modes when they bought it, but then they just disappeared. he will like the return on invested capital. Definitely, I think it's a great return on invested capital. It's pretty easy to build the stores and just get it going. And he would like that in 20 years, people will still be buying clothes, definitely, even though there is going to be change in the way people shop, maybe more internet. I think nobody has the right and exact way, because I mean, me as a man, I think it's easier to just order a t-shirt or something, but I think a woman maybe a lot of times like to touch it, maybe see. I mean, I'm not that expert, but I think that's how it is. I mean, you women like to maybe touch it, see how it fits, maybe sometimes go with your friends and check out, and I think definitely um, the retail space where you go to shop is gonna be there, and I will say Ross is gonna be one of the ones that is gonna be present, because they do have a pretty big moat in the way that they already have their establishment, they already have their buyers, the connection with potential like people that are going to sell to them very cheap, and people always going to buy value. I mean, value is a thing that in any space you're looking for: food, clothes, probably technology. I mean, value, price is what you pay, value is what you get, and I think Ross is definitely a great player in value. And important lessons for reflection that I learned from Ross, and I think it's good to think, was it a good idea to open these stores? Ross has been doing great. Why start to invest in something similar? As I said, they started the first 20 years with Ross, and it was going very good. And then they decided to open Diddy's. Per their couple of last conference calls that I listened to, Diddy's is not doing as great. They are kind of worried about. They are kind of rethinking the assortment, the locations. Obviously, as I said before, since it's destined to a lower income people, I mean, when there's recession, I mean, they are affected. So, but again, as Buffett always says, I mean, it's very hard to hit in a good business. So, very, as an entrepreneur or as an investor and as a CEO of a company, I think it's always a big risk to switch, especially because, as we can see, they're still growing 20 years later. So my question to them, which obviously you will never know, is like, what if they will have spent all that capital in opening more Ross instead of opening the Diddy's, which obviously I'm saying this when they are not doing great, and it's easy to just look the back mirror, but I mean, that is the story, and at least a thing to always think about from everything. I mean, if you have a restaurant, you just always go to restaurants because it's the feel I'm more comfortable with. But like, if you have a great restaurant, should you open another one with a different name? I mean, my answer to me is no. I mean, if something works, just keep doing what works, as Mr. Charlie always said. I mean, yeah, I mean, do what works. I mean, and do it and repeat it. And I have a pretty cool story. I don't know if you read the book Thinking Fast and Slow.
Not yet.
Okay, he say. So I tried to read a couple of times, but last time I finally finished it, because it's kind of like it's heavy and a lot of repetition, but it's super interesting. And the first person got recommended. I mean, he didn't recommend it to me directly, but I heard about it, was Seth Klarman. And lately, I was listening to an interview with Todd Combs, and he also said that it's a book he reads every year. So obviously, definitely you have to read it. And the reason I mention it is because something clicked on me, and is that I kind of lost faith. I mean, I used to love Ross like as an investment. I really wanted to put money into it. I did for a bit, then I sold. But lately I lost faith, and the reason was that I've been, as you, I'm a big shopper at Costco, so I think Costco and Walmart are getting very big into this space. So maybe I think, to me, in my opinion, there's more competition from Walmart and Costco to Ross, even though they usually don't have. Well, Costco does have brands. Walmart, not that I don't think they have very well-known brands. Costco does, and I've been buying a lot of things from Costco. So basically, Costco has been inviting the money I was spending in Ross before, because I go to shop and I see, I don't know, tennis shoes, for example, is the most common thing, and I just buy it there because it's great price, and I mean I don't have to go to Ross. But the interesting story from this book is that you as a person, you always are very connected to the last thing that happens. And what's interesting about this, that the example he put in the book, is that, like, for example, when you listen to a plane crash, the next time you're on a plane, you are way more scared. And the connection to me with this is that just because I'm buying in Costco, and yeah, I'm not going to Ross as often as I used to, and that's the reason I kind of lost the faith in how good of an investment is. That doesn't really, I mean, that's not really very smart. I mean, I think it's a good thought, but you really always have to look at the numbers, because I'm doing it doesn't mean everybody's doing it. I guess I can just be the exception. And I think we as investors many times think about that. And it happened to me a couple of years ago also with Facebook, because I was like, oh, I like Facebook, and well, I mean, it was a different reason, but a lot of people close to me were like, oh no, I don't use Facebook anymore, and look what happened. And Facebook is just growing, and if you see the numbers and you see the quarterly and you see the annual report, you see them growing. So just because it happened to me or to my close friends, yeah, it's a sample and it's important, but you really have to look at the numbers and the facts, know what you think. So obviously investing is a lot of instinct, but you have to confirm your hypothesis with the numbers. And that's what made me thought and made the connection between this book, Ross, and that. So that's all I have for you, Michelle.
Wow, that's incredible insight. So thank you so much, Alejandro, for teaching us about Ross as a company, a stock to evaluate. And I learned a lot. I mean, I like shopping at Costco, and it's interesting that also is a similar treasure hunt experience. Like the closest I can relate to is mostly having been to maybe a TJMaxx or Marshall's. So it's interesting that you mentioned how Costco also has some elements that it could be maybe taking some market share from Ross. If you can find some good summer clothes at a great price at Costco, and you're already there for your food and other home supplies. So Costco makes it so easy that you don't have to go to many other shops if you don't want to. So definitely there's some pros and cons to everything. I mean, not all shops fit one size. So I'm sure there's definitely a tremendous value that Ross provides. And I think there's a lot that people will benefit from. Like there's certain experiences that I'm sure people seek out Ross that they might not be able to get to have at Costco or Walmart. So I think each retailer has their place, and this has been incredible. So thank you so much for sharing your investing insights and wisdom with us today. It's been great learning from you.
Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me again. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. And hopefully, if we have questions, that'd be great. We'll try to answer them. And as we always say, I mean, it's very fun to learn and talk about business.
Thank you, Alejandro. Until next time.